The seventh generation from Raj Krishnananda saw the appearance of Madan Mohan Datta, who was very famous in Bengal and Calcutta for his spiritual qualities. His great-grandson was Ananda Chandra Datta, and his son was Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, whose fourth son was Bimal Prasad. The name Bimal or Sri Bimal Devi refers to the Parasakti, internal potency of Lord Jagannath. So his name literally means the mercy of the internal potency of the Lord. Bimal Prasad stayed in Jagannath Puri for 10 months after his appearance, and then journeyed to Bengal by palanquin on his mother's lap. He grew up in his early years in Ranaghat in the district of Nadia, hearing about Krishna from his mother. When he was a small boy, perhaps 2 or 3 years old, Yes, when he was a small boy, perhaps 2 or 3 years old, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought some ripe mangoes from the market. Bimal Prasad took one to eat, saying, "This is mine." Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur got up and said in a grave voice, "What is this? New fruit has come into the house. It has not been offered to Giridhari, and you have taken it first? Remember, new fruit is to be given first to the Lord. Without giving the first share to the Lord, nothing is to be taken." The child was very repentant and exclaimed, "Oh, what evil thoughts I have had! Throughout my whole life, I shall not eat these again. This is the right punishment for one ruled by greed." He made the promise and observed it throughout his whole life. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada comments on this incident. Whenever we offered him a mango, he said, "No, I am an offender. I cannot take mango." He was thinking that I have offended in my childhood by taking the mango of the deity. So this is the characteristic of the Acharya. They teach by their life's action. One should not be so much determined. A child took the mango, there is no offense, but he took that vow. This is chapter 2, Education. When Bimal Prasad was 7 years old, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was constructing the Bhakti Bhavan in Calcutta at Ram Bagan. During that construction, a deity of Lord Kurma was unearthed. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ordered his son to begin regulated worship of that deity. In the very beginning, the boy used to hear the preaching of his father with rapt attention. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur as well as his audience were amazed to see how a small boy could hear the topics of Krishna consciousness with such total absorption. By the age of 7, he had committed the entire Bhagavad Gita to memory and could wonderfully explain the verses as well. Later on, he was trained in publishing a proofreading at Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's printing press in connection with the Thakur's well-known spiritual journal, the Sajjad Roshani. At the age of 11, Bimal Prasad toured the various places of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leelas with his father. Bimal Prasad was had an eidetic memory. Whatever he would read once, he could later recall with perfect clarity. He was trained in mathematics and astrology at the Sri Rampur school, and he achieved such astounding scholarship that he was eventually awarded the title Siddhanta Saraswati by his tutors, Pandit Mahesh Chandra Chauramani and Pandit Sundarlal. During this period, he used to attend the Sunday weekly meetings of Thakur Bhaktivinod's Vishwa Vaishnav Rajasabha and hear the Thakur lecture on the Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu of Sri Rupa Goswami. He was never known to study his school assignments, and while sitting at home, would replace those assignments with studies of Srila Narottam Das Thakur's Prarthana, Prema Bhakti Chandrika, and other devotional literatures. However, whatever questions he was asked by his teachers, he would immediately answer, and he got excellent results on all of his examinations. He used to debate everyone he met on all sorts of subjects. No one would argue with him. No one who argued with him was ever able to defeat him. Just as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had defeated a great scholar, Keshav Kashmiri, at a young age, so similarly Bhima Prasad once during his later college days debated a scholar named Panchanana Sahityacharya, the disciple of Vasudev Sastri, a very famous professor of that time on topics of astrological calculation. The debate was held in the home of Sri Rajendra Chandra.
Radha Vallabh? Yeah. And actually, I'm just about to call Krishna Prabhu because he was calling the Shartatma. हाँ मैं अभी बता देता हूँ.
The debate was held at the home of Sri Rajendra Chandra Shastri and judged by him as well. After some discussions, that scholar had to accept defeat. In fact, the scholar became so mortified that he could not check the cause of nature. After continue, read. He used to debate everyone on all sorts of subjects. No one who argued with him was ever able to defeat him. Just as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had defeated a great scholar, Keshav Kashmiri, at a young age, so similarly Bhima Prasad once, during his later college days, debated a scholar named Panchanana Sahityacharya, the disciple of Vasudev Shastri, a very famous professor of that time on topics of astrological calculation. The debate was held in the home of Sri Rajendra Chandra Shastri and judged by him as well. After some discussion, that scholar had to accept the defeat. In fact, the scholar became so mortified that he could not check the cause of nature. After that, everyone was reluctant to debate him for fear of being defeated. Just as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had defeated a great scholar, Keshav Kashmiri, at a young age, so similarly Bhima Prasad once, during his later college days, debated a scholar named Panchanana Sahityacharya.
When do you want to meet? He is here only. Krishna Prabhu बताने राधा वाला को यहीं पे हैं. हाँ जी? कब तक हैं? हाँ जी? Sorry? But you will be ready by 7. ठीक है, ठीक है. मैं पूछ लेता हूँ उनसे.
Bhima Prasad once during his later college days debated a scholar named Panchanana Sahityacharya, the disciple of Vasudev Sastri.
Correct this name.
Right from the book.
He says Radha Vallabh तो यहीं पे रहेंगे. That is okay. He says I will have to go. He has a class at Punjabi. So he says I will leave by 7. Is that okay? Sorry?
She's having a benefit there.
It's better if he is also there. You'll finish by 6:45. ठीक है, फिर मैं उनको जल्दी बोल देता हूँ.
Yes.
At the age of 11, while in the 5th class, Bhima Prasad invented a type of shorthand writing called Bikanto. And it was during this period that he took a tour of the holy places with his father. When the boy was in the 7th class, equivalent to today's 8th class, and about 13 years old, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought Tulsi beads for his son from Jagannath Puri and gave him the name of Hari and a missing a mantra to chant, which he executed very faithfully along with the worship of this Kurma deity, according to the instructions of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. At the age of 16, while his schooling continued, the books of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur formed the serious content of his studies. He also began writing books on astrology, and during this time he formed the Chira Kumar Sabha, or the August Assembly, amongst his friends with whom he met regularly at Kolkata's Eden Square. There they used to discuss topics related to religion, and the members were required to take a vow of celibacy. The society was formed with the purpose of giving people a chance to remain seriously engaged in worship of the Lord and detached from family life. But Bhima Prasad was the only one who observed his vows immaculately. In 1892, at the age of 18, he took an entrance examination and entered Calcutta's Sanskrit College. As before, he paid scant attention to the prescribed books, but he found the time to read all of the philosophical books contained in the library. During his college holidays, he would discuss the Vedas with the scholar Sri Yukta Pritividhar Sharma. Although Siddhanta Saraswati had become learned in all 6 branches of Vedic knowledge, Siksha, pronunciation, Kalpa, sequences of Vedic sacrifices, Vyakarana, grammar, especially the use of word roots, inflected words and sentences, Nirukta, meanings of inflected words and word roots, Kandha, recitation of Vedic mantras, and Jyotish, astrological and astronomical calculation. Still, to study the Vyakarana, the grammatical branch of the Vedas, he approached the Pandit Pritividhar Sharma. The Pandit praised him for his achievements and encouraged him to study the Siddhanta Kaumudi throughout his life. Siddhanta Saraswati replied, "My life is for the single-minded cultivation of the teachings of Sri Chaitanya, not for the cultivation of grammar. I have only studied the Vedas, the branches of the Vedas and their related parts in a secondary manner." In 1895, he left the college, as he was very eager to execute his worship of the Lord and to remain free from the pressure to enter family life. He stated in his autobiography, "If I remain studying with careful attention at the college, then extreme pressure will be brought upon me to enter family life. But if I am considered to be foolish and inefficient, then no one will put such an inducement upon me for becoming so engaged. By this consideration, I left the Sanskrit college, and in order to maintain my life for the service of Hari, I was desirous of getting an honest occupation which I could perform with the intention of earning an humble income." Unquote. During his student days, he also wrote essays on spiritual topics for various magazines and strongly condemned various religious malpractices which had become prominent in society. At the Bhakti Bhavan in 1897, he established a Chatuspati, a small academy called Saraswati Chatuspati, where many learned persons from Calcutta attended his lectures and discourses on astronomy. He also published the magazines Jyotirvid and Brihaspati and other old astrological texts like the Surya Siddhanta, famous and highly regarded Sanskrit astronomical treatise. Here, he also established and edited the Bhakti Panjika, an almanac. He was well acquainted with both the eastern and western branches of astrology, but naturally favored the Vedic one. He was offered a chair in astronomy at the University of Calcutta by Sir Asutosh Mukherjee, but Siddhanta Saraswati declined it, thinking it an impediment to his spiritual life. At the request of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, he composed the Srinavadip Panjika, a Krishnaized almanac in which the months, lunar fortnights, days, lunar days, stars, etc. were all given names of Vishnu. He did not spend very long in his astronomical pursuits, however, and soon dedicated himself fully to the worship and distribution of the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was also employed by the royal kings of Tripura from 1895 to 1905 in various services. Initially, he accepted the post of editor under Pancha Srika Maharaj Virachandra Manikya Bahadur, and he edited a history of their family entitled Raj Ratnakar. During this time, he studied all of the principal books of the royal library. A year later, however, the Maharaj departed from this world. The succeeding king, Maharaj Radhakishore Manikya Bahadur, entrusted Siddhanta Saraswati with the instruction of the sons of the king in Bengali and Sanskrit. The king also requested him to put an end to various cheating activities of persons who were misappropriating royal wealth. Siddhanta Saraswati quickly stopped this nonsense, much to the delight of the king. He assisted the royal family in different ways until 1905. At that time, he requested to be given leave, and this was granted along with a full pension, which he accepted for some time and then later discarded. The name of him? Just how he was involved.
अच्छा टेस्ट बार-बार टाइम पूछते रहते हैं, बार-बार टाइम पूछते हैं, ठीक से रेस्ट नहीं करते हैं।
During this 10-year period, many other significant events took place as well. In 1897, he began to strictly observe the vows of Chaturmasya, including the practice of cooking for himself one preparation daily, taking the food from the ground, and lying on the earth without any bedding or pillow. In 1898, he toured Benares, Prayag, and Gaya with Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and discussed philosophy with persons in the line of Sri Ramanujacharya. In 1899, Siddhanta Saraswati published a number of articles on spiritual topics in a magazine called Nivedan, a Calcutta weekly. So this is the chapter 3 initiation. Siddhanta Saraswati had been engaged in regularly chanting the Mahamantra and Nishinga mantra given to him by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur when he was in the 7th class, and he had been worshipping the Kurma deity discovered in the laying foundations of the Bhakti Bhavan in Calcutta since the age of 7. Without fail, he had been executing that worship and chanting since his boyhood, and from 1885 onward, he had received special training in printing, editing, etc. at the press at the Bhakti Bhavan. Thus, the young man was very qualified candidate for becoming a disciple of a guru. Many pseudo-gurus, mantra peddlers of the Sahajiya category wanted to have him as their disciple to increase their false prestige. After all, Siddhanta Saraswati was a magistrate's son. He was a strict renunciant from birth. He was learned and deeply attached to the scriptures. But Siddhanta Saraswati was not interested in such pretenders. In 1898, after Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had constructed his residence in Navadvip Dham at Gaudamadvip and called it Svananda Sukhada Kunj, and sometimes after the discovery of Lord Chaitanya's birth site by the Thakur and Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj arrived in Navadvip Dham to see the site of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birth and to hear the discourses of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. When he arrived, he was singing in ecstasy. His only possessions were the Tulsi Mala which he wore around his neck, and another set he kept in his hand for counting. He kept a few books such as Narottam Das Thakur's works, Kartana, and Prema Bhakti Chandrika. Gaurkishore Das Babaji had been performing bhajan for many years in Vrindavan. He was extremely renowned and was the disciple of Bhagavad Das Babaji, the disciple of Jagannath Das Babaji. He was not well educated and had been a grain merchant in his previous existence, but it was widely known that he was a liberated Paramahamsa of the highest caliber in the area of Rajmandal. At the time of his arrival, he was wearing a cap made of tiger skin and was carrying a basket of various items and material for his service. He spotted Siddhanta Saraswati and offered him 4 or 5 pieces of knotted rope for chanting rounds, a tilak stamp with the initial of Hare Krishna for Hare Krishna, the tiger skin cap, and paraphernalia for worship. Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj had received the basket and cap from his spiritual master Bhagavad Das Babaji. Siddhanta Saraswati was very attracted to Gaurkishore Das Babaji's lotus feet at the first sight. He was later to comment with great humility, quote, "I have been busy within this mature world trying to bring sense gratification within the grasp of my hand. I have often thought that by obtaining the object of sense gratification, all my shortcomings will be fulfilled. I often attained different facets that were indeed very rare, but my own personal shortcomings were never mitigated. In this material world, I have had the association of very high-class, aristocratic persons. However, seeing their various deficiencies, I could not offer them praise. The most merciful Supreme Lord, Sri Gaurasundar, seeing me in such a lamentable condition at such a time of adversity, gave permission to his 2 dearmost devotees, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji, to grant their blessings to me. Because I was always intoxicated with a worldly false ego, wanting again and again self-appraisal, I deprived myself of my own real benefit. But because of the influence of my previous birth's activities in devotional service, I came into the association of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was the form of my spiritual well-wisher. My spiritual master, Sri Gaurkishore Das Babaji, would go and visit Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and many times would reside with him. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, out of his compassion for other living entities, pointed out my spiritual master, Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji. Upon seeing my spiritual master, the extent of my worldly false ego diminished. I knew that all the other living entities who have taken the human form of life were also fallen and low like myself. But by gradually observing the spiritual character of my master, I realized that only a Vaishnav could reside in this material world and be of exemplary character. Unquote. At Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's urging, the young men approached Srila Gaur Das Babaji for initiation in the month of Magh of the year 1900. Srila Gaur Das Babaji expressed reluctance to accept him, knowing Siddhanta Saraswati to be a great scholar. Finally, when Siddhanta Saraswati pleaded with him for initiation, Gaur Das Babaji replied, Mahaprabhu will be asked. If he gives permission, your desire will be fulfilled. On another day, Siddhanta Saraswati approached him again and asked, what was Mahaprabhu's order? Gaur Das Babaji replied, I forgot to ask. The third time Babaji Maharaj was requested, he replied, I asked, I did not receive the command of Mahaprabhu. Siddhanta Saraswati then stood up, his heart breaking, and said, you, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Gaur Kishore, are both worshippers of Krishna, the crest jewel of devotees. Therefore, why will you take mercy on someone dedicated to ordinary morality like me? In his pastimes, as the exemplary teacher, Mahaprabhu has given instructions on the worship of Krishna, the crest jewel of devotees. Therefore, why will he give the command to take mercy on me? But Karuna nahile kandiya kandiya prana narakibe har. If there is no mercy, weeping and weeping, I can sustain my life no more. If I do not receive your mercy, I do not see any need in holding on to my life. Unquote. After thus indicating his readiness to take his life, Siddhanta Saraswati began to cry. Srila Gaur Das Babaji's heart was melted to see this, so he told him to take bath in the Saraswati and then come back to him. At the time of initiation, he gave Siddhanta Saraswati the name Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Dahita Das. This pastime bears a striking resemblance to the relationship between Narottam Das Thakur and Lokanath Goswami. Lokanath Goswami was an extremely humble and renounced Paramahamsa who was reluctant to take any disciples, considering himself unqualified, but finally accepted Narottam Das Thakur as his only disciple. It shows how eager and determined one must be for the mercy of a pure devotee of Krishna. This is chapter 4 in the Puri. In 1898, Siddhanta Saraswati had accompanied his father to Kashi, Prayag and Gaya, and had gathered many facts about all these holy places, which were later incorporated into his commentary on the Chaitanya Charitamrita called Anubhasya. In 1900, he published a book called Bange Samajikat, which described the origin, location, and philosophy of various societies, castes, and religions, and he expounded the clear superiority of Lord Chaitanya's doctrine of inconceivable, simultaneous oneness and difference. In March, he accompanied Bhaktivinoda Thakur to Odisha, where they visited the temple of Kishore Gopinath at Rimuna, and also saw Bhubaneswar and Puri. While in Puri, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur decided to build a place for bhajan just near the samadhi of Srila Haridas Thakur, and so Siddhanta Saraswati stayed and served his father in various ways, assisting him in establishing his bhakti kuti by the sea. At that time, the Maharaj of Kasim Bazar was camped nearby, and he came regularly to hear from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Siddhanta Saraswati. Siddhanta Saraswati was giving regular classes from the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the presence of his father, and many listeners were assembling just to hear it. The famous Radha Ramana Charan Das Babaji used to come at that time to hear the discourses. Later, relations with the Babaji were broken because of two deviations by him. One, Radha Raman Charan Das Babaji. He introduced the chanting of Bhajanitai Gaura Radhishyam Japa Hari Krishna Hari Ram. This was introduced with the idea of stopping the audible chanting of the Maha Mantra. The first problem with this was that the concocted mantra had the faults of Siddhanta Viruddha, an opposing conclusion, and Rasabhas, conflicting rasas. The second problem was that trying to suppress the audible vibration of the Maha Mantra was against the desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as established by his activities and teaching, as well as by the teachings of the Goswamis. Rupa Goswami had written in a Praratama Chaitanyastaka, text 5, Hare Krishna Tyukche. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chants the Hare Krishna mantra in a loud voice. Therefore, Rupa Goswami, an eyewitness to the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and recipient of his full blessings and empowerment for establishing his mission, personally testifies here that Lord Chaitanya did not confine the Maha Mantra to inaudible muttering, but loudly proclaimed to it all. Radharaman Charan Das Babaji also introduced the Saki Beki doctrine by addressing his follower Sri Jayagopal Bhattacharya as Lalita Saki. This was against Mahaprabhu's teaching as well, as an ordinary jiva was being worshipped as though he were an expansion of Srimati Radharani.
You'll be ready in 10 minutes. Huh?
Post Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Siddhanta Saraswati instructed the Babaji to give up these fallacious practices, but he refused. Siddhanta Saraswati began to preach publicly and strongly against these misconceived teachings, proclaiming that the Maha Mantra is for both Japa and Kirtan, and that Kirtan is ultimately superior to Japa. This created quite a controversy in Puri, with many taking the side of the Babaji out of misplaced sentiment and others siding with Siddhanta Saraswati. During this period, Siddhanta Saraswati was engaged in the compilation of a Vaishnava encyclopedia, which contained an explanation of Vaishnava terminology, brief biographies of great Vaishnavas, an introduction to the books of the Vaishnava Acharyas, a description of the Vaishnava Tirthas, the various conclusions of Vaishnava sects, etc. He called it Vaishnava Manjusa Samahriti, and it was later published in 4 volumes. A Vaishnava scholar commented on it by saying, "This work is only possible for a supramortal, great personality like Prabhupada, Srila Saraswati Thakur. Even if 25 to 30 scholars and 10 to 15 men taking the treasury of a king began the work, they would be unable to edit it." Unquote. Was begun in Puri and continued as Siddhanta Saraswati made his preaching rounds of Sri Mayapur Dham, Sri Jagannath Puri Dham, and Sri Raja Dham. He also studied the books of Srila Madhvacharya and Srila Ramanujacharya and published some of them in Bengali. He also published biographies of these and other Vaishnav saints in the Satjana Toshani magazine of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He toured South India in 1905 and again in 1904 and again in 1905. Places like Tirupati, Sriangam, Singachal, Rajmahendri, Madras, Pirambadur, Conjeeveram, Kumbakonam, and Madurai. While on tour, he collected all the information about the rites and rules of Vedic Siddhanta Vaishnava Sannyas from a Ramanuja Siddhanti Swami at Pirambadur. Wherever he would go in his travels, he would lecture, write, and debate the learned pundits of the day. He soon acquired such a reputation that his name would strike fear in the hearts of his philosophical adversaries. All bogus cults and sects were doomed in his presence. However, in Puri, Siddhanta Saraswati experienced such severe oppression and censure due to his preaching against the rhyming kirtan and Saki Beki doctrine of the popular Radharaman Charan Das Babaji that finally Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur instructed him to go and perform bhajan near the Yoga Pit, the birthsite of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is chapter 5, Nam Bhajan. In 1905, at the age of 31, he began his great vow, following the example of Namacharya Haridas Thakur, of chanting 3 lakhs of name, 192 rounds per day. He determined that at the rate of 300,000 names daily, it would take about 9 years to complete 1 billion names. He resided in a grass hut at the Yoga Pit for 4 years, and in February 1909, he built a cottage near the Yoga Pit at Rajapatna, the town of Raj, on the site of the house of Sri Chandrasekhar Acharya, the uncle of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This place he considered to be non-different from the banks of Radhakund. There he remained uninterruptedly executing his chanting. He strictly followed his vow and observed Chaturmasya, cooking rice which had been dried in the sun, in the ghee, and eating it from the floor in the manner of a cow. He would take rest lying on the ground, never using any pillows, and constantly chanting and study the scriptures. Seeing his renunciation, his Gurudev Srila Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj said, "I observe that the renunciation of Sri Rupa Guru Raghunath is manifest in my Prabhu." He used to address his disciple as my Prabhu. In commenting on this period, Srila Prabhupada states, from childhood he was a strict brahmachari, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. And he underwent very severe penances for starting this movement, worldwide movement. This was his mission. When the roof of his kutir became broken, rather than take time away from his chanting, he would simply use an umbrella when it would rain and go on chanting. Sometimes he had to go to different places, but he continued very strictly and completed his vows always. In 1906, Sri Rohini Kumar Ghosh, and the nephew of Chandra Madhavam Ghosh Mahasai, a former justice of the Calcutta High Court, had a wonderful dream, and as a result, approached Sriranta Saraswati for initiation. The boy had gone to stay with some balls, a so-called guru and his consort, who he was instructed to address as mother and father. These persons were actually sinful rascals in the guise of devotees, but while he was in Mayapur, he had the good fortune to hear from Srimati Saraswati for a long time. He returned to the place of the bowl and feeling ill, he lay down to rest. In the dream, the bowl took the form of a tiger and the consort the form of a tigress. They were about to devour the unfortunate lad, who was trying his best to take shelter of Lord Gaurasundar. At that moment, Srimati Saraswati arrived on the scene, chased the tigers away, and began to lead him to Mayapur. The boy awoke at the daybreak and proceeded to Mayapur.
December. Morning fruit tree.
2 days of waiting hours, 2 days on little too early. To take test Manali still Delhi.
टाइम बार बार पूछते हैं आते हैं ऐसे काम कर रहे हैं कितना टाइम
Manali you have to take adequate rest. There are complaints about you. Much less.
But एक बात तो है जो हमारे पहले से बहुत बड़ी बैठ में मेरा देखो गाड़ी आ गई पहले तो पूजा करके तो गया नॉन इज रेडी नॉर्मल है यार जो भी लोगों का तो 10 हो गया था ना 10 तो क्लिनिकली आप देखो ना क्लिनिकली तो हमारा बाकी आप जो कह रहे हो ठीक कह रहे हो बट मेरा कहने का मतलब है
It takes at least 6 to 8 hours, 8 weeks for things to settle. You can't just keep doing that. How's the game? The strap is on.
तो ये वो ना वो कह रहे हैं वो हाँ वो है लगा हुआ और बदलने के लिए वो आ गया था
हाँ
Sleep.
मानते तो अपनी मानते हैं ना दिन में मानते हैं नहीं हम नहीं मानते हैं अच्छा अब नहीं यूज कर रहे
कुछ बोलो ना
I just did it. Let's take it out from one side. First, ये वाला
अगर ढूंढ लेंगे तो बाकी 4 घंटे लोग भी तो देखना
He has, he has, he gave you? He wants to stay with me, that's why. Oh, and also, yes. This is lotus feet of Krishna, both lotus feet. Narayan Shiva. This is a shivling. Shivling. Shiva. This is a kurma. Yes.
That's it.
Matsina kurma. I to put the everyday life. See.
रूम से नहीं रूम पे नहीं रहते भगवान
lot of exertion Maharaj in class you have to restrict for maximum of
15 minutes class
जय जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा सुदर्शन महाराज की जय।
तो अच्छा लगता है वो
So for Artie, you offer only